And now it is time for this edition of the News Review. Welcome to another edition of the News Review. In this edition, Lebanese President Michel Aoun has accepted the resignation of Prime Minister-designate Mustafa Adib. Aoun said that he will adopt the necessary measures accordingly. Adib stepped down after a meeting with the president almost a month after he was tasked with forming a new government. The resignation followed Adib's failure to build a consensus among different factions. Last week, he had warned that a delay in forming a new cabinet would exacerbate the political crisis in the country. Some factions, including Hezbollah, had accused the United States of obstructing efforts to form a government. The Arab country has been struggling with political crisis since August 10, when the government of then Prime Minister Hassan Diab resigned amid mounting public anger and protests over a deadly blast in Beirut. Now, to discuss that further, we're joined by, of course, our very own correspondent, Mariam Saleh, who's been keeping us updated on these developments, and also Saeb, Shaath, author and Middle East affairs expert, joining us live from Belfast. Let's begin with our correspondent, Mariam Saleh. Mariam, if you could please give us more updates. Have there been any developments ever since this news broke out?
Well, not really new developments politically. However, we have the various reactions from political factions. You have, for example, former Prime Minister Shaath who says that the politicians, seemingly removing himself from the circle of politicians, saying that the politicians have not agreed, once more have not failed in agreeing on a certain solution or on a government which is bound, which was meant to fight corruption, want to make reforms and so on. And at the same time, you have the other politicians who also said that this was an opportunity. This was an opportunity for the Lebanese people that unfortunately was not clear. We also had a statement from Speaker Nabi Bidi, who said that he is ready to continue with the French initiative, which is a French solution proposal presented by French President Emmanuel Macron. He said that he read it word for word and he wants to work through it and not to be blamed for being part of the obstruction in this formation of the cabinet. Now, as you know, from first day of the beginning of this trial of forming this cabinet, there was almost complete silence because there seemed to be only one group that was trying to form this cabinet, and at the same time you had a huge U.S. attack. Two very renowned ministers, former ministers who were sanctioned, were blacklisted by the U.S. This seemed to be a message to the U.S. saying that we will exclude, and this is what we have of course, in the corner, the canals. They say that Hezbollah was supposed to be excluded from this government, and this is something that the Amal movement, Speaker Nabi Bidi, refused, of course. Now we're talking about the next step. The next step is that President Michel Aoun has to go on, based on the Constitution, to call for new parliamentary consultations. And when he will hold these consultations is still not clear, whether it will be next week or later on. But the thing is, the main question is now, who will be named? Will we go back to naming political figures? Or will there be also new meetings behind closed doors between the future movement, like Saad Hariri, and the Shiites, like the Amal movement, Hezbollah, and even the Christian groups like Free Patriotic Movement? Will they agree on another name, which is similar to Adib, in a method that that really lets the country move forward, and that we go through the same issues, but based on the same constitutional traditions, if we may say, or else things will not move forward.
Thank you very much, Mariam. Let's bring in Mr. Saeb, Shaath, author and Middle East affairs expert. If you could please complete the comments that Mariam made for us here. What do you think the next step would be? What's going to happen next in Lebanon?
It's all in here in the hands of the West and the United States of America, who's trying to impose its will in Lebanon. So Lebanon currently going through the worst economic and financial crisis it's ever seen in modern history. There is an American and Western economic blockade coupled with political and economical war being waged on Lebanon today. That is to target the political forces which Macron himself in his visit went and sat with. These forces, they are refused to compromise on their sovereignty and on their wealth, their land, their support for the Lebanese resistance, or even in their foreign policy. The American economic and political sanctions in Lebanon, they are trying to decouple or to destroy the these political parties' parliamentary victory of the 2018 elections, which is achieved in a free and fair election and supported the resistance, and the resistance bloc came to the parliament. Since then, the United States of America widened its framework of the strategy of the maximum pressure, which is uses against Iran, and targeting the Lebanese livelihood as well, and the Lebanese people to maximize their suffering. In that way, the Lebanese, they never experienced such a bad economical condition as the way its country going through today. Lebanon minimum wage used to be around the scale of 800, between 500, 600. This is the minimum wage, dollars a month. Today, we're talking about $80 a day. Lebanon rating in the scale of rank of position as a country in a nice kind of position in the country's ratings. Today, this is gone. And all of this is part of the sanctions the Americans and the Western powers are pressurizing Lebanon with, and especially after the explosion and in Beirut, which is followed by Diab's government resignation. And then we see President Macron pay 2 visits to Lebanon. And let me just say here one thing. We have to understand Lebanon used to be under the French colonialism and was occupied at the time after Sykes-Picot being dividing the region between the French and the English. And then the French, when who occupied Syria, they gave a province from Syria in the 30s called Alexandron to Turkey, and divided, sliced Lebanon out of Syria to be in the future a country according to their sectarian and racist policies run by Christians. And since that sectarian design created in France, Lebanon faces a lot of problems. After, let me say, after the blast of Beirut blast, Macron proposed what they called at the time his roadmap to the Lebanese government and Lebanese political parties, the main political parties. Even he sat with the representatives of the resistance movement, Hezbollah. He wanted the Lebanese to accept and form a government according to his own roadmap. And he wants so this government will allow the West interest to be protected and saved according to the wishes of the West. Then they will allow billions of dollars coming from the international community and donors to Lebanon to save the stagnating economy and to rebuild the strategic port of Beirut. I heard myself from well-informed Lebanese sources that the French President Macron threatened the Lebanese political leaders with sanctions if they do not reform their political systems according to his proposed roadmap. So they want to use all of this to impose a new Western colonial agenda on Lebanon, which want to unlock all the victories and destroy of the resistance camp in Lebanon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaath. We're running out of time, so just one final question for both of you. If you could just wrap it up very quickly, Mariam Saleh, do you believe that the Lebanese people are now ready to actually avoid foreign interference and try to stand on their own feet, decide their own future without having to depend on any foreign country?
That is almost impossible in Lebanon in light of the given circumstances, in light of the lineage that you have with some sides, with Western groups. We saw clearly how everyone had, with open arms, said that they're ready, they want to have this French initiative. And this is why even those who are not with the French initiative succumbed at the end of the day, if this only brings us to national court. But unfortunately, even this did not help in really unifying the Lebanese people.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Saeb Shaath, your opinion?
I think, it's very clear the United States of America position. In the Senate hearing last Thursday, the American Undersecretary State David Hill revealed that they spent $10 billion in Lebanon on security forces and NGOs and civil society organizations. Why the United States of America spent such money? He wanted to destroy any political force in Lebanon who cooperate with the resistant Hezbollah. And we can call as well what the former Assistant Secretary of State, Jeffrey Feltman, when he said in 2010 that Washington had spent over $500 million in defaming the reputation of Hezbollah, to spread rumors about it as a terrorist organization and as a drug traffickers. The Americans' money is spent in Lebanon to destroy the sovereignty of Lebanon, to destroy the liberation movement. They want Lebanon as a colonial entity for them, that's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saeb Shaath, author and a Middle East affairs expert, and our very own correspondent, Mariam Saleh, always keeping us updated on the developments in Lebanon. Thanks to all of our viewers for following this edition of the News Review.